Dorothy spent the entire morning bustling about in the kitchen, meticulously preparing for the impending family feast. It was, after all, her beloved son's birthday, a fact she couldn't overlook. "Here, Michael, take this to the table," Dorothy instructed, handing a plate of freshly cut vegetables to her son. "Oh, I swear, I'm swamped with this meat." Michael chuckled at his mother's remark, casting a fond glance her way before heading outside. Meanwhile, his fiancée, Sarah, flitted about the outdoor banquet table, making final arrangements. "Oh, Michael, we forgot to pick up napkins," Sarah suddenly realized. "You carry on setting the table. I'll dash to the store real quick." With that, Sarah postponed her table-setting duties, planting a quick kiss on Michael's cheek before playfully attempting to wriggle free from his embrace. Observing the scene from the window of their country home, Dorothy felt a pang in her heart as unsettling thoughts began to creep in. There was a time when Sarah could have been her daughter-in-law. Several years back, she had been involved with Daniel, Dorothy's eldest son. The young couple had been deeply in love, and it seemed inevitable to everyone in the family that a wedding was on the horizon. Yet, as is often the case with passionate young hearts, frequent arguments eventually led to a painful separation. For 2 long years, Sarah vanished from their lives. Of course, nobody could have foreseen her return, especially not with Michael on her arm. "Son, come here. I need to talk to you," Dorothy called out as Michael stepped through the doorway. "What's up, Mom? Is everything okay?" Michael responded, concern evident in his voice. "My heart's uneasy about Daniel not showing up," Dorothy confessed, shaking her head. Michael shrugged, trying to play down his mother's worries. "Mom, Daniel's my brother. Of course, he'll come to my birthday party. It's not about that, Michael. I'm worried about Sarah. Remember, she and Daniel were once in love," Dorothy explained, her words leaving a bitter aftertaste in Michael's mind. "Well, they were in love once, so what? That's ancient history, Mom. Besides, Daniel hardly ever shows up, and Sarah gives me no reason to be jealous," Michael reassured, wrapping an arm around his mother's shoulders. "Don't stress, Mom. Remember, Sarah is my future wife," he added before reluctantly freeing himself from her embrace. As Michael headed out to the backyard, he heard the gate slam shut. Anticipating his beloved's arrival, his smile vanished the moment he caught sight of his future mother-in-law's disapproving gaze. "Oh, Michael, guess what? I bumped into Mom on the way back from the store. Turns out, she's on her way to our party," Sarah exclaimed, her tone tinged with frustration. "Hello, Mrs. Robinson," Michael greeted, trying to keep the peace despite the tension in the air. Michael forced a strained smile as he accepted the packages from the store from his bride's hands. "Well, hello there, Michael. Look at you, a real man," Mrs. Robinson remarked snidely. "Can't even carry packages home for your fiancé. All the heavy lifting falls on the woman, doesn't it?" "Bravo. Mom, at least check what's in those bags," Sarah interjected, coming to Michael's defense. "They're napkins and disposable dishes, and Michael has already been lugging around heavy stuff from the shopping earlier." But Mrs. Robinson remained unmoved. She draped her arm around her daughter and bypassed Michael, marching into the house while lamenting loudly, "Oh, my dear, that's what Daniel used to do. He'd whisk you away, drive you to the store in his car, and he always paid for everything himself." Michael gritted his teeth as he followed behind. Mrs. Robinson had never acknowledged his strength. How could she, when compared to his successful older brother? Daniel had his own thriving business and an apartment downtown, subjects Mrs. Robinson never tired of boasting about. To her, young Michael, with his modest income and living situation with his mother in a country house, seemed too ordinary. "Mom, why are you doing this? It's Michael's birthday today. You're ruining his party," Sarah protested as they entered the house. Dorothy was already waiting for them in the hallway, relieved from her kitchen duties. Suddenly, Sarah felt unwell, her vision darkening as she collapsed to the floor. Frightened, the family rushed to her side, surrounding the unconscious woman. "Look what your whims have brought your daughter to," Michael reproached his mother-in-law, cradling his fiancée in his arms. "Mom, why are you just standing there? Call an ambulance." As the doctor arrived and tended to Sarah behind closed doors, Dorothy volunteered to accompany him, leaving Michael to wait anxiously. "How are you feeling, Vic? What did the doctor say?" Michael asked, concern etched on his face as he sat beside her. Sarah's smile held a mysterious warmth as she spoke. "The doctor said I'm perfectly healthy, more than healthy." "But why did you faint then?" Michael questioned, his worry still evident. "People faint, Michael. It happens. Especially to women," Sarah reassured him, her hand gently stroking his arm. "But don't you see? We're going to have a baby." Sarah's pregnancy became the best birthday gift for Michael. Overjoyed, he shared the news with everyone at the table once all the guests had gathered. Only Daniel was absent, citing urgent work matters. However, Michael's happiness was too overwhelming for him to dwell on his brother's absence. Yet, Mrs. Robinson's reaction was less than enthusiastic. She was the only one who didn't share in the joy of Sarah's pregnancy. Quietly excusing herself from the party, she claimed sudden indisposition, leaving before everyone else. As the evening wore on, the guests bid their farewells, leaving Dorothy still beaming from ear to ear as she tidied up after the celebration. "Oh, Michael, I can hardly believe it. I'm going to be a grandmother. What a joyful day it has been," Dorothy exclaimed with delight. "But my beloved mother-in-law doesn't seem to share the sentiment," Michael mused, gathering the dirty dishes from the table. "What did she say to you this time?" Dorothy inquired. "I wish she had said something. Instead, she sat there all evening looking like she'd been doused in cold water," Michael vented. "But why am I surprised? She's been dreaming of marrying Sarah off to my brother her whole life." "Don't dwell on it, son," Dorothy waved off his concerns. "She'll come around eventually. Your happiness with her daughter is what matters most to any mother." Michael found some comfort in his mother's words, but a lingering unease remained after the events of the previous evening. The following day, as Michael made his way home from work, he spotted Sarah not far from her mother's property. Assuming she was visiting her mother, he continued walking until he noticed a familiar car approaching her. To his surprise, Daniel stepped out of the vehicle. Intrigued, Michael slowed his pace and observed the pair. They appeared happy, engaged in conversation, and eventually embraced. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" Michael called out. The reaction of his fiancée and brother left Michael unsettled. As soon as he addressed them, they quickly drew apart, their expressions awkward and evasive, avoiding his gaze as if caught in the act. As Michael witnessed the exchange between Sarah and Daniel, a burning sense of jealousy ignited within him, causing his fists to clench. A dreadful thought raced through his mind. What if Sarah still harbored feelings for his brother? "Hey there, future daddy," Daniel greeted Michael, extending his hand. "I was passing by my mom's place and saw Sarah standing there. I stopped to chat," Daniel continued, oblivious to Michael's internal turmoil. "Why didn't you tell me about this wonderful news? Sarah's pregnant." "You should have come to the party. You would have found out for yourself," Michael replied, his smile strained. "Don't be upset," Daniel chuckled, giving his brother a friendly pat on the shoulder before hopping into his car. "All right, I've got to go. Work's calling, you know. Congratulations to you both." With those parting words, Daniel drove off, leaving Michael silent and despondent for the rest of the walk home. A sense of unease gnawed at him, its source eluding explanation. Unable to contain his turmoil any longer, Michael confronted Sarah as they entered their home together. "Why was he hugging you like that?" Michael questioned, his voice tinged with concern. "It was just a friendly gesture." "Michael," Sarah dismissed, slipping off her sandals. I told Daniel about the baby, and he was happy for us. Oh, and I invited him to the wedding. I hope you don't mind." Michael breathed a sigh of relief and nodded in understanding. He realized he had allowed himself to become consumed by unfounded suspicions over a chance encounter between his fiancée and his brother. Deep down, he felt ashamed for doubting Sarah's loyalty, especially as she carried their child. Several days passed, and to Michael's surprise, Sarah underwent a noticeable change in behavior. She became withdrawn, often shedding tears, yet stubbornly refused to confide in her fiancé about what was troubling her. One evening, upon returning home, Michael discovered Sarah alone in the backyard, seated silently in the gazebo and staring off into the distance. Approaching her, Michael could see that Sarah was once again in tears. "Sarah, what's wrong? Has something happened?" Michael inquired with concern, settling down beside her. "Don't worry about it," Sarah deflected, averting her gaze. "Is something bothering you?" Michael persisted, worried by his fiancée's demeanor. Sarah let out a sigh, feeling irritated by Michael's fretting. "If you keep fussing like this, something might start bothering me. Why are you acting like such a worrywart?" With those words, Sarah abruptly stood up and hurriedly made her way towards the porch, clearly not wanting to continue the conversation. Concerned by Sarah's mood swings, Michael tried to reassure himself that it could be attributed to pregnancy hormones. After all, mood swings were common for expectant mothers. However, he couldn't shake off his worries entirely. Deciding to seek advice, Michael turned to Mrs. Robinson. Despite the tensions that arose at his birthday party, he recognized that she was an important figure in Sarah's life as her mother. The man arranged to meet with his mother-in-law to discuss his concerns about her daughter's condition. "Mrs. Robinson, I understand that Sarah's pregnancy must be challenging for her, but these mood swings," Michael began, only to be swiftly interrupted by Mrs. Robinson's dismissive snort. "You understand nothing, Michael," Mrs. Robinson interjected with a haughty air. "Sarah's experiencing headaches, swollen feet, constant anxiety, and a myriad of other joys you couldn't possibly comprehend." She waved away his concerns with a disgruntled expression. "Men like you simply lack the stamina us women possess." "Actually, Mrs. Robinson, I wanted to talk to you about something else," Michael persisted, struggling to articulate his thoughts. "Lately, I've noticed Sarah's been unusually anxious. She's quick to anger and cries frequently." Mrs. Robinson paused, a realization dawning upon her. "Perhaps, Michael. Quite likely, in fact. And I might even hazard a guess as to what it could be," she exclaimed. "Has she confided in you about something?" Michael inquired. The mother-in-law smirked knowingly. "You could say that. After all, I'm a mother, Michael. I see things for what they are." She scrutinized Michael with a critical gaze before shaking her head. "If I were my daughter, I'd be in tears too. Her life hasn't turned out as planned. Marrying not for love, but out of necessity." Mrs. Robinson's words stung Michael, but he managed to restrain himself from lashing out. Feeling disheartened by the conversation, he bid his mother-in-law farewell and made his way home, lost in thought. As the man approached the house, he encountered his bride, who appeared even more despondent than usual. "Sarah, you seem utterly worn out from all these wedding preparations," he remarked sympathetically, moving to embrace her. However, she turned away. "Michael, about the wedding," Sarah began, her tone grave. "I've told you before, you don't have to tackle everything alone. You have me, your friend, your mom. A wedding is a significant milestone, one that marks the start of our life together," he reassured her. "Michael, there won't be a wedding," Sarah declared abruptly, attempting to extricate herself from his embrace. Her words hit him like a thunderbolt. "What do you mean, there won't be a wedding? Am I hearing you correctly?" Michael asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Sarah rubbed her temples, unable to meet his gaze, and Michael sensed her embarrassment. "Sarah, please, Explain what's going about. Don't you want to be my wife? He implored, his heart sinking. Michael, it's not that. I do want to be your wife. It's just, can't we postpone the wedding for a while? She pleaded. For how long? Sarah, this isn't right. Our child deserves to be born into a family, Michael insisted, his concern growing. Our child will be born into a family, Michael. We'll have our wedding and our family happiness, I promise. It's just that things have been so hectic lately. We need a little more time, okay? Sarah embraced him tightly, her words laced with sincerity. Reluctantly, Michael acquiesced to his pregnant bride's wishes, not wanting to add to her stress. Yet, deep down, he knew Sarah was keeping something from him. The next day, Michael's fears were confirmed. The man returned home from work earlier than usual to find Sarah alone in the house, taking a shower. Spotting her laptop on the bedside table, Michael's curiosity was piqued. He absent-mindedly touched the mouse, causing the screen to illuminate with the webpage of a renowned medical clinic in the region, displaying information about abortion services. Michael was stunned. Did Sarah truly intend to terminate their unborn child? When Sarah emerged from the shower, Michael stormed towards her in a fit of rage. Startled, Sarah cried out, unaware of her fiancé's return. I've seen your laptop. You need to explain everything to me right now, Michael demanded. Michael, what are you talking about? Sarah pleaded, her voice trembling. Don't play innocent with me. You've been lying to my face about wanting a family, but you're secretly planning an abortion, Michael accused her bitterly. Sarah shook her head frantically. No, Michael. I was looking it up for a friend, for Lisa. Why on earth would Lisa need an abortion? Michael pressed, his frustration mounting. I can't tell you that. It's not my secret, you know? Sarah replied, panic evident in her voice. Michael stared at her incredulously. Surely it's not for you. Of course not. You're being ridiculous. I want to have a child with you. I want us to build a family together, Sarah insisted earnestly. Despite his doubts stemming from Sarah's recent odd behavior, Michael lacked concrete evidence to incriminate her. Reluctantly, he chose to feign belief in her words for the time being. The next morning, while Sarah was still asleep, Michael sought out his mother in the kitchen. Dorothy was absorbed in watching her favorite TV series while attending to the washed dishes. Michael's revelation deeply unsettled the compassionate woman, particularly the news about the possibility of Sarah considering an abortion. Dorothy had long cherished the dream of becoming a grandmother. Son, I'm almost embarrassed to bring this up, she began, lowering her voice to ensure privacy. What's on your mind, Mom? Michael inquired, sensing her unease. I can't shake this thought. What if Sarah isn't pregnant with your child, but with Daniel's? Dorothy confided, her words heavy with concern. Mom, that's absurd, Michael protested indignantly. Why? Life can be unpredictable, son. None of us are immune to mistakes. Perhaps they had a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment. His mother suggested cautiously. No, Mom, that's not possible. I refuse to believe it, Michael exclaimed, rising from the table and retreating to the bedroom to gather his thoughts. Antonia's words had stirred up a whirlwind of emotions within him, leaving him sickened and in need of clarity. Determined to confront his brother directly, Michael called Daniel and arranged to meet him near his workplace. Boarding the first bus to the city, just a few kilometers from their suburban complex, Michael braced himself for the impending conversation. When they finally met, Daniel was taken aback by Michael's visibly agitated state. Why do you look so pale, Michael? He joked, attempting to lighten the mood. Enough with the jokes, Daniel. I'm not beating around the bush, Michael interjected sharply. Did you have anything to do with Sarah? Daniel's nonchalant demeanor faltered, sensing the gravity of the situation. And why does it matter now? I don't recall you caring about it before, he replied with a shrug. It doesn't matter what happened before. I'm asking you about the present," Michael pressed, his voice tinged with urgency. Michael's fury surged as he grabbed his brother by the chest, his voice trembling with accusation. "Answer me. Did you sleep with Sarah? Did you get her pregnant?" Daniel recoiled, his expression a mix of shock and indignation. "Are you out of your mind? How could you even think such a thing?" Pushing Michael away, Daniel straightened his business shirt, scanning their surroundings for any onlookers to their heated exchange. "The answer is obvious. First, I see your friendly encounter. Then Sarah abruptly calls off the wedding. And now I discover she's been researching abortion options." Michael's voice trembled with frustration as he laid out his suspicions. Daniel listened intently, his demeanor surprisingly composed despite the gravity of the accusations. "So it's entirely possible that the child could be yours," Michael concluded bitterly. "Michael, you're delusional. You have a beautiful girl who loves you, and she's not to blame for anything except having a past, like we all do." "And yes, that someone was me," Daniel admitted candidly. Michael seethed with anger, but found himself at a loss for words in the face of his brother's confession. "You hold such high opinions of your fiancé and your own brother. I can't say anything to that. But mark my words, at this rate, you'll surely lose Sarah," Daniel warned cryptically before briskly heading back to work, leaving Michael alone with his turbulent thoughts. The confrontation with his brother left Michael unsettled, and Daniel's parting words echoed ominously in his mind, sounding like a veiled threat. The man returned home, intending to have a frank conversation with Sarah to finally ascertain the truth about the paternity of their unborn child. However, the evening took a tumultuous turn, culminating in a heated argument. "God, I'm exhausted by your unfounded suspicions, Michael," Sarah cried out, turning to her mother-in-law for support. Dorothy could only offer a sympathetic shake of her head before retreating to the kitchen, weary of the escalating conflict between the young couple. By now, Michael deeply regretted initiating the confrontation. Sarah vehemently denied any wrongdoing, her tears only adding to the confusion. Overwhelmed with doubt and guilt, Michael found himself torn between believing his fiancée's protestations and his lingering suspicions. "All right, Sarah, I'm sorry. I've been foolish. I've let my insecurities get the best of me," Michael conceded, his remorse evident. "You're damn right, Michael. You know I'm pregnant. Yet you persist in these baseless accusations every single day," Sarah shot back, her frustration palpable. Despite his attempts to reconcile, Michael failed to secure forgiveness from Sarah that evening. Instead, she withdrew into a silent standoff with her fiancé, leaving Michael to grapple with his shame for doubting both his fiancé and his own brother. As days passed, Sarah's anger subsided somewhat, and she unexpectedly informed Michael of her plans to visit her grandmother and share the joyful news of her pregnancy. Ethan recalled that Sarah had long been considering a trip to visit her grandmother, who lived a considerable distance away on the other side of the country. Given her previous discussions about the journey, her decision didn't seem impulsive or suspicious. "Oh, what a difficult time for her to travel," Dorothy lamented, seated with her son in the kitchen. "Traveling alone, especially while pregnant. Mom, it's not the first time Sarah has flown to see her grandmother. Why are you so worried? Besides, she's not 9 months pregnant yet," Michael reassured her. "Oh, you don't understand, son. My heart aches for Daniel," Dorothy replied with concern. "What about him?" Michael inquired. "Didn't he tell you?" Dorothy seemed surprised. "He's flying to New York City on business, negotiating with some sponsors. I wish I knew more about it." "That's fantastic news, Mom," Michael exclaimed. "It is, indeed. But a parent's heart always worries for their child. You'll understand when you become a father," she remarked with a fond smile. Michael grinned, looking forward to embracing fatherhood and eagerly anticipating the arrival of his and Sarah's first child. During the weekend, Michael assisted Sarah in packing for her upcoming trip. "Sarah, Who organized these documents? You won't be able to find anything later like this. You should keep your passport alongside your tickets, he advised, noticing the disarray. Michael, I'll handle the documents myself. Please don't touch them, Sarah responded, a hint of annoyance in her tone. Sarah grabbed Michael's arm in a desperate attempt to stop him, but it was too late. Michael had already glimpsed the destination, New York City, printed on the ticket. So, this is it. Visiting your beloved grandmother, huh? You thought you could deceive me and go on vacation with my brother? Michael's voice trembled with betrayal and hurt. Michael, it's not what you think. I didn't cheat on you, I swear. Let me explain, Sarah pleaded, her eyes brimming with tears. I've heard enough of your explanations. You're always lying to me, Sarah. I'm sick of it. I'm leaving. And by the time I return, you better not be here. Go to your beloved Daniel, Michael declared, his tone laced with bitterness and resentment. Tears streaming down her face, Sarah made a desperate attempt to hold on to Michael, but he remained resolute. Hastily grabbing a few belongings, he arranged to stay with an old friend for the time being. Ignoring the flurry of missed calls from both Sarah and her mother, Michael shut off his phone. That evening, he drowned his sorrow in alcohol with his friend, succumbing to a fitful sleep until late the next day. Upon awakening, Michael was surprised to find several missed calls, not only from Sarah, but also from her mother. Reluctantly, he returned Dorothy's call, only to be met with frantic news Sarah had been hospitalized with a threatening miscarriage. Distraught, Michael dialed Daniel's number to relay the devastating news. Daniel's reaction was one of fury, accusing Michael of succumbing to irrational jealousy. I'm telling you again, Sarah didn't cheat on you. She's carrying your child, Daniel shouted through the phone. Sarah is gravely ill and could be in mortal danger. Get to the hospital immediately. She needs your support now more than ever. What do you mean, mortal danger? Why? Michael's voice cracked with fear and confusion. Michael was shaken by his brother's revelation. It was the first time he had heard about the illness Daniel had mentioned. In a rush, he hailed a cab and made his way to the hospital where Sarah was staying. He spotted her approaching the main gate, having discharged herself after signing all the necessary paperwork. Daniel just told me some terrifying things over the phone. Sarah, please explain to me, what's this disease? Michael pleaded urgently. Do you remember when I got pregnant and I started having medical tests? Well, the doctors discovered that I have a very rare disease related to my lymphatic system. Right now, the only available treatment is abroad, Sarah explained, her voice heavy with concern. But how is that possible? You seemed perfectly healthy, Michael exclaimed, bewildered by the revelation. I don't know, Michael. You saw how much weight I lost and how unwell I felt. I thought it was just because of the pregnancy, so I hesitated about seeking treatment until it became too late. I even considered abortion, Sarah confessed, her eyes filled with regret. And what about this treatment abroad? Is there a chance for recovery? Michael inquired anxiously. There is a chance, but it's not guaranteed to work for me. That's why I decided to call off our wedding. Sarah's voice trailed off, uncertainty clouding her expression. Michael enveloped his fiancée in a comforting embrace, feeling the ground shifting beneath him. He couldn't bear to imagine what Sarah had endured during this time without his support. Sarah, why didn't you tell me about all of this sooner? We could have faced it together, Michael exclaimed, his heart heavy with regret. I knew how much you cared for me. This news would have devastated you. I didn't want to burden you with worry, Sarah confessed, her voice tinged with sorrow. Sarah shamefully averted her gaze. So I turned to Daniel. He wanted to tell you everything, but I told him not to. Daniel helped me financially. First, he paid for examinations here, then in New York City. And this trip will also be at his expense, she confessed, her voice laced with guilt. I see, Daniel, always playing the generous benefactor, Michael chuckled. As if I couldn't have managed to arrange the finances. Don't be angry with him. It's all my fault. I let my emotions get the best of me. Please forgive me. And know that the child is yours. I have nothing with Daniel. I love only you," Sarah pleaded earnestly, her eyes brimming with sincerity. Michael couldn't stay mad at his beloved for long, especially when she was in such a distressed state. Sarah also revealed that she had only confided in Daniel about her illness and begged Michael not to disclose it to her mother or mother-in-law. Michael gave his word without hesitation. Firm in his resolve, Michael decided that now that the truth was out, he would trust Sarah and believe that she and their child would be fine. A year passed. Sarah underwent successful treatment in New York City and returned home, where she gave birth to a healthy daughter, Maya. Now, she and Michael were busy preparing for their wedding and the upcoming christening of their newborn baby girl. With Maya's birth, the relationship between Michael and his mother-in-law finally improved, and both grandmothers doted on their granddaughter. Over time, they grew closer as well. Just the other day, Michael offered Daniel to become the godfather of their baby girl. Daniel was pleasantly surprised and agreed without a second thought. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more awesome stories in the future. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and we'll see you next video.